They said it was too late to start over at 45. But love had other plans. They told her she was being foolish. At 45, with silver threads weaving through her dark hair and laugh lines etched deep around her eyes, Claire Morrison was supposed to know better. She was supposed to accept that some chapters close and stay closed. That second chances were for the young, the optimistic, the ones who still had time to waste on dreams. But standing in the kitchen of her empty house on a Tuesday morning, staring at divorce papers that had been final for 6 months, Claire felt something she hadn't felt in 20 years. She felt like herself. And that self was terrified. The coffee maker sputtered its familiar morning song, but the silence around it felt heavier than usual. Her daughter Emma had left for college 2 years ago. Her son Tyler had joined the Navy last spring. And her ex-husband David had left long before the papers made it official, checking out of their marriage somewhere around year 12, though they'd limped along for 15. Claire had built a life around being needed, being a wife, being a mother, being the PDA volunteer, the one who remembered everyone's birthdays, the woman who brought casseroles when neighbors fell ill. She had been so many things to so many people that she'd forgotten to be anything to herself. Now the mirror showed her a stranger. A woman with kind eyes and capable hands and absolutely no idea what came next. Her sister Diane called that afternoon, her voice bright with forced cheer. "Have you thought about dating apps? My friend Margaret met someone wonderful on one of those sites. He's a retired dentist, very stable." "I don't think I'm ready," Claire said, wiping down counters that were already clean. "Ready?" Diane laughed, but there was an edge to it. "Claire, you're not getting any younger. If you want companionship, you need to be realistic about your options at this age." Those words sat in Claire's chest like stones. Your options at this age. That night, she did something she hadn't done in decades. She pulled out the old cardboard box from the back of her bedroom closet, the one she'd moved from apartment to house to this smaller house. Never opening it, but never throwing it away either. Inside were notebooks. Dozens of them, filled with her cramped handwriting. Stories she'd written in her 20s, before marriage, before children, before life became about everyone else's needs. She'd wanted to be a writer once. Not a famous one necessarily, just someone who told stories that mattered. She opened one notebook at random and read a passage about a woman finding wildflowers growing through cracks in concrete. The metaphor was heavy-handed, the prose unpolished, but there was something alive in it. Something that remembered hope. Claire cried then, quietly, for the girl who'd written those words and the woman who'd forgotten she ever existed. The next morning, she saw a flyer at the library. Creative Writing for Adults, Tuesday evenings 6-week session. The instructor's name was listed as M. Brennan, with an email address for registration. Her finger hovered over her phone screen for 20 minutes before she sent the email. Then she immediately regretted it, and spent the rest of the day convinced she'd made a mistake. The community center classroom smelled like old books and lemon cleaner. Claire arrived 15 minutes early to the first session. Her new notebook clutched against her chest like armor. She chose a seat in the back corner, hoping to be invisible. 6 other people filtered in gradually. 2 younger women in their 30s. An elderly man with a cane. A middle-aged couple who sat close together, clearly still in love. And a woman about Claire's age with short gray hair and paint-stained fingers who sat one chair away and smiled at her. "First time?" the woman asked. Claire nodded. "Is it that obvious?" Over the following weeks, something shifted. Claire found herself thinking in stories again, noticing the small dramas of daily life. The teenage barista who always drew hearts in the foam. The man at the grocery store who talked to his deceased wife while shopping. The moments of grace hidden in ordinary days. She also found herself looking forward to Tuesday evenings in a way that had nothing to do with writing. Michael had a way of seeing people. Really seeing them. He remembered details from stories shared weeks earlier. He asked gentle questions that opened up new ways of thinking. And he had a self-deprecating humor that made everyone feel at ease. After the 4th class, Beth invited a few of them for coffee. Michael came too. And somehow Claire ended up sitting beside him in the cramped cafe booth, their shoulders almost touching. "So what made you start teaching?" she asked. His expression shifted, something sad flickering across his face. "My wife died 3 years ago. Cancer." She was a writer, much better than me. After she passed, I didn't know what to do with myself. A friend suggested I teach, help other people find their voices since I couldn't seem to find mine anymore. I'm so sorry, Claire said quietly. Me too. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Some days are better than others. Teaching helps. Seeing people like you discover their gift again. That helps. I'm not gifted, Claire protested. I'm just a middle-aged woman trying to figure out who she is now that nobody needs her anymore. Michael turned to look at her fully. First, 45 isn't middle-aged unless you're planning to live to 90. Second, writing isn't about age. It's about truth. And you, Claire Morrison, tell the truth in a way that makes people feel less alone. That's not nothing. She carried those words home like precious. You're holding that notebook like it might run away. Her smile deepened. I'm Beth. Fair warning, I'm terrible at grammar, but I have a lot of feelings about trees. Before Claire could respond, the instructor walked in. Brennan turned out to be Michael Brennan, a man who looked to be in his early 50s, with glasses that slid down his nose and a worn leather messenger bag that had clearly seen better days. He wasn't handsome in any conventional sense. His sweater had a hole in the elbow. His hair stuck up in the back like he'd forgotten to check a mirror. But when he smiled at the class and said, "Thank you for trusting me with your stories," something in his voice made Claire sit up straighter. Writing, Michael said, perching on the edge of the desk, is the art of paying attention, of noticing the things we usually ignore, the way light falls through a window, the specific ache of missing someone who's still alive, the moment you realize you've been holding your breath for years. He assigned them a prompt for the following week. Write about a moment of unexpected kindness. Claire went home and stared at a blank page for an hour. Then she started writing about the day after David moved out, when her elderly neighbor Mrs. Chen had appeared at her door with a container of soup and hadn't asked a single question, just squeezed her hand and said, "You're stronger than you know." The following Tuesday, Michael asked if anyone wanted to share. No one volunteered. Then, to her own shock, Claire heard herself say, "I'll try." Her voice shook as she read. She stumbled over words. But when she looked up, Michael was nodding, and Beth was wiping her eyes, and the elderly man with the cane said, "That's exactly right. That's exactly how it feels." Michael caught her as she was leaving. "Claire, right? That was really beautiful. The specificity of the details, the emotional honesty. Have you written much before?" "Not for about 20 years, she admitted. They talked about books and grief, and the strange task of building a new life from the rubble of an old one. Michael told her about his wife Sarah, about the pain of watching someone disappear by inches, about the guilt of wanting to be happy again. Claire told him about the slow death of her marriage, about feeling invisible for years, about the terrifying freedom of starting over. "Everyone keeps telling me I should be grateful I still have time to find someone," she said. "Like I'm running out of chances and I should take whatever I can get before the clock runs out." Michael shook his head. "That's not how it works. Love doesn't have..." Claire kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for him to reveal some fatal flaw or hidden agenda. But Michael was just Michael, kind and thoughtful and carrying his own wounds with quiet grace. Emma called one Sunday afternoon. "Mom, you sound different. Happy different. What's going on?" Claire hesitated. "I've been taking a writing class. And I met someone." The pause on the other end felt long. Met someone? Like, dating someone? Maybe. Possibly. I don't know. It's new and complicated and I'm probably too old for this anyway. "Mom." Emma's voice was firm. "You're not too old for anything. Dad checked out years before the divorce. You deserve to be happy. Tell me about him." So Claire did. And in telling her daughter about Michael, she heard herself describing not just a man but a possibility. A future that wasn't just about making do or settling or being grateful for scraps. 3 months after the class ended, Michael asked if she'd like to go to the coast for a weekend. "Separate rooms," he added quickly. "No pressure. I just thought we could both use an escape." They walked on the beach at sunset, their shoes abandoned on the sand. The ocean stretched out forever, gold and pink in the dying light. "I need to tell you something," Michael said, stopping to face her. "I'm scared." Sarah was my person, you know? I thought I'd used up my chance at this. And now here you are, and I feel like I'm 25 again, terrified of screwing something up. Claire reached for his hand. I'm scared too. Everyone in my life has an opinion about what I should do, who I should be, how I should act at my age. But when I'm with you, I don't hear those voices. I just hear me. The version of me I forgot existed. What's she saying? That it's not too late. That life isn't a straight line from young to old with all the good parts at the beginning. That maybe the best chapters are the ones we write when we finally know who we are. Michael kissed her then, soft and tentative and real. That night, in her own room with the sound of waves through the open window, Claire wrote in her notebook. Not a story this time, just the truth of the moment. How she'd thought her life was over at 45. How she'd believed the narrative everyone kept telling her. That she was past her prime, past her chances, past the point where transformation was possible. But standing on that beach, she'd felt something she hadn't felt in decades. Not just happiness, though there was that. Not just love, though there was that too. She felt possibility. The wide-open future stretching out like the ocean. Full of things she couldn't see yet but knew were there. 6 months later, Claire stood in Michael's kitchen, helping him cook dinner. Beth and her husband were coming over, along with 2 other friends from the writing class. A new session was starting in a week, and Michael had asked Claire to co-teach with him. You're sure about this? He asked, chopping vegetables with the focused intensity he brought to everything. It's a commitment. I'm sure. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her cheek against his shoulder blade. I'm sure about a lot of things now. Her phone buzzed. A message from Tyler, her son, saying he had leave coming up and wanted to bring his girlfriend to meet her. Another message from Emma, sending a link to an article about late-blooming writers, and saying this made me think of you, Mom. Proud of you. Claire looked around Michael's bright kitchen, at the life they were building together. Not a replacement for what came before, but something new. Something chosen. 2 people who'd been broken in different ways, learning that healing doesn't mean erasing the scars. It means finding someone who sees them and loves you anyway. The doorbell rang. Beth arrived with wine and laughter, pulling them both into hugs. Did you tell her? She asked Michael conspiratorially. Tell me what? Michael pulled an envelope from the drawer. A literary magazine wants to publish your story. The one about setting a table for one. They loved it. Claire took the envelope with shaking hands. Her first publication. At 45 and a half. After everyone had told her it was too late to start over. Too late to chase dreams. Too late to become someone new. That night, with friends around the table and Michael's hand warm in hers, Claire understood something fundamental. The world would always have opinions about what was possible. About what women of a certain age should want or do or be. But the only opinion that mattered was her own. And she had decided that life wasn't measured in years, but in moments of courage. In the choice to keep growing, keep opening, keep believing that transformation was always possible if you were brave enough to reach for it. She was 45, and her life wasn't ending. It was finally, beautifully beginning.